in. And I smile as I respire because I know they'll never win. There's a haze above my TV that changes everything I see. And maybe if I continue watching, I'll lose the dreams that worry me. Can we fast forward to go down on me? Stop there and let me correct it. I wanna live a life from a new perspective. You come along because I love your face, and I'll admire your expensive taste. And you said that I invested. I wanna be played from a new perspective. But leaving now would be a good idea. So catch me up on getting out of here. Fast forward to go down on me. Taking everything for granted, but we still respect our time. We move on with some new passion, knowing everything is fine.
Or even breathing. I stared at her in horror. Tonight's the night! Good job, sis! Ashley said, punching my shoulder softly. What are we gonna do? I can't believe I'm a Reaper. Well, what's gonna happen at the ceremony? I asked, looking a little scared and confused. Ashley stopped and she stared at me with her big, beautiful blue eyes. She smiled the cute little smile that she always does when she knows that you're going to be okay. She put her hands on my face, softly rubbing it down. She said in her sweet, kind voice, "Don't worry, you're going to do good, big sister. Whatever you do, don't mess up on this test." I smiled as well. I couldn't believe this little kid could make me smile so big. It was a great feeling, and I couldn't believe it. Every day after I became a Reaper, I realized something. Ashley had slowly begun to grow up into a wonderful adult. But one night, that full moon night, she was murdered by a soul eater. When I got home, I had set my keys on the table, and I shouted, "Hey Ashley, I'm home!" I set my bag on the couch, listening for her cute little reply. No voice came. I smelled something that didn't smell right. I used my eagle-eyed focus. I realized a soul eater had been at my house. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. I opened the door. It slowly creaked open. The lights were shut off and the room was a mess. But I saw my sister laying on the floor, staring the other way, on the other side of the room. Wasn't moving, crying, or even breathing. I stared at her in horror and I slowly began to move my legs towards her. My hand shook as I lifted it up. When I went to reach for her, her body slowly went this way and her eye pupil, there was none. The color in her eye was white, but she was smiling. her cute little smile. I backed away, putting my hands on my mouth, and tears ran down my face, dripping slowly on the ground. And I said in a weak voice, "What happened? What happened to you? Please tell me you're not dead. I don't want you to die." I slowly fell onto my back. I tried to reach myself up, but I couldn't. My body felt numb and weak, and I just fell back down to the floor again. I looked to see that her body slowly dissolved into white crystals, glass-like crystals in a way. She dissolved, and I realized I had totally forgot that Reapers always reproduce in a different body, but it would never be the same. My sister, I would never see again, have no memory of, and the council was going to be very angry with my actions. So after that, I ran out of the house. I even tripped on my foot, trying not to listen to all her cries come at once, screaming into my head, screaming, "It's all your fault! You weren't here to protect me, and that's why I'm dead." The voice laughed and snickered, kept teasing me and pushing me around. I realized it was the Soul Eater. It was a young child who was doing this. I couldn't understand why the child was being so rude. I didn't understand. Why was she so mean to us? What did I ever do to her? I slowly realized she was the one who had killed my sister, and my katana had to go through her, showing her that she should know her place. I stood up, and I grabbed for my back and pulled out my red katana. I put my two fingers together and slid it down the thin blade, cutting my hand. Then I put it back on, the blood rubbing it, and I yelled, doing it, "The soul within me has chosen this blade to cut through, and bless you." As I did so, the katana had turned into gold. I was very pleased. I could make this soul go at peace. But the little girl's soul, she looked at me like I was insane, and she laughed. While laughing, she said, "You think you can defeat me? And I'm the one who killed your big little sissy." Oh, the little sissy started crying and calling for her big sister. "Oh, sissy, come save me, big sister, big sister." What a pathetic joke. I slowly realized this soul eater had lost its purpose of life, and I had to dispose of it. My rage gathered up. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I screamed, grabbing onto my blade, and I ran right through her, slashing her. As I ran, I looked back at her. The soul was still laughing. Then she grinned and said one last sentence before she disappeared and went to the dark side. She said, "You are a pathetic reaper." And she dissolved into the sky as a red butterfly. I couldn't help it. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I let them rage through me. I cried and I begged. Why? Why did she have to die? I put my hands on my face and I just cried. The tears dripped through my hands and landed onto my katana. A voice suddenly came from the katana. It said, "Don't worry. Kiki, your sister is in a very safe place. She will never dissolve into the Soul Eater. You know that. She was once known as an angel. Do not give up on her. Do not unsee her beauty as a reaper. She is in a better place." I slowly realized my katana was right. I hugged my katana. It knew exactly what to say to me. Ashley, you're just like my sister. The katana slowly turned into a small, pale child with beautiful blue hair and white eyes that looked like pearls, and her lips were a soft pink. She smiled at me with a graceful smile. Then she put her hand and held my hand. She said, before she walked me down the road, "I'll be your little sister for you." I've always thought of you as a big sister. I smiled when she said that, and suddenly my tears had stopped. After a few years, when I turned 21 and she had turned 13, we decided we would start our own group. She sat there boredly picking at her food. She said, "What are we gonna do, Kiki? I'm so bored. How about we decide what the name is or what type of level the Reaper should be in?" Then she slowly stopped and she stared at me curiously, putting one of her hands on her face on the side of it, and just glanced at me. I looked at her and I smiled. I stopped cutting up the carrot that I was cutting up for our dinner. And I said, "Well, I think the name Death Fighters would be good. And maybe they have to be experienced fighters or beginners. Maybe teenagers?" Then I slid the carrots with the knife into the pot. Then I sat down and I sighed. I looked at her and smiled. "What am I going to do with you?" I said. She just stared at me in a weird look and said, "You may be my big sister, but that doesn't mean anything, you weirdo. You better not be thinking anything weird," she said. Then all of a sudden she grabbed the fork and poked it onto my cheek. A little blood trickled down my face, and I said, "Ow, what did you do that for?" I said, grabbing the fork out of her hand and poking her in the cheek. She smiled and laughed, like a little kid, and she said, "You moron, you keep forgetting I am made out of steel." Then I realized, yeah, she was my katana. I couldn't do anything. Suddenly, my phone went off. Oh, it must be the central. As I reached for my phone, I picked it up. I answered it. On the other side of the phone, a man's voice came through and said, "Miss Kiki and Miss Katana, you are needed at Central this instant. You have a mission." I said back to the voice, "Yes, sir. We'll be there right away." I hung up the phone, and I stared at my katana. "Okay, we're gonna have to work really hard this time. Now, where's our stuff? Suddenly, my katana turned into her form. She sat onto the table, and a voice came from the katana that was hers. She said, "Remember, moron, your stuff is in the closet. I just washed it yesterday. Duh!" I smiled and I snickered at the same time. I even humped. I went in the back of the room. I slid on my steel boots that went all the way to my knee. And then I put on my red jacket that was ripped and torn but still looked super awesome. And I slid on my black jeans. Then I put the katana on the back of my jacket, which had a sword holder. Finally, I slid on my red glove on my left hand. I said, throwing my hand to the side and looking down on the ground. Then I put my hand into a fist-like hold, and I laughed and said, "Let's kick some monster butt." For the night.
This is gospel.